Welcome to the show, IB Nation Sports Talk up and running. I'm Sean Styles. I've got Vince D'Addario with me tonight. How you doing, Mr.
I'm doing,
D'Addario?
man. I'm doing. This was a long day. I actually had to get up and go to work all day, and I mean, just slaving away, baby. Just slaving away. Probably the wrong terminology to use. Working all day, which I'm not used to because I just came off of summer break. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's true. It's a little bit different.
A little shock to the system, but hey, I'm excited about it, and I'm putting my time in at my old job for a little while, which is a little strange. I feel like a president who ran for re-election but didn't get elected, but he still has a month of his term left. Like, that's how I feel, right? I'm the lamest duck on the planet at this particular situation.
Lame duck D'Addario.
It's really weird. People are like, I thought, yeah, it did,
like,
but
I did.
Here I am.
Yeah. Still hanging around. Can't get rid of me just yet. Welcome, Alberto. He says, wow, I made it to a live show. Midnight here in Spain.
Woo.
LOL. Have some paella for us over there, Alberto.
Woo.
Here it's pretty good this time of year.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Thistlemore Pottery welcoming Vince back. And old buddy Drunk Vigo, better call Saul back. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I mean, I know he was watching Better Call Saul based on some stuff that he said the other night, but I don't know beyond that. Well, we've got kind of our main topic we're going to get to here in a minute. We're going to have some fun tonight. We're going to make some predictions. Who's going to get all the catches and as well as the yards this season, with all this, the receiving room, and there's hardly any guys, and the running backs and tight ends, and everyone's speculating on where's all the production going to go, who's going to catch all the passes. So we're going to spend a good chunk of this show trying to predict where those passes will go. I'll just take this quick, you know what I'm going to say right now. Hit the like button, subscribe, rate, review, all that great stuff. We appreciate it. Irish Breakdown appreciates it. It helps us out. So please and thank you. And Alberto with a response. Valencian or Mallorcan paella, both really good. I would not know. I don't know the difference between the two. I know there's rice and shrimp and, maybe some other proteins,
Sounds
like
good to me.
Clams or, I don't know. But
sounds good to me. I am so not well versed in international cuisine. I am just a bumpkin when it comes to that kind of stuff, man. But I am willing to try anything once. I'll tell you what. And what you just said sounds great. I love shrimp. I love rice.
Vince is like, give me some lasagna.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah. All right. So we had a quick practice viewing this morning. First 5 periods of practice, did not see a ton as you would expect. Few notable things did come up, though, in practice, just in terms of who was there, who was not there, and also an anticipated change of position. Everyone's been asking with, after Avery Davis's injury, is someone going to move to wide receiver? Well, guess what happened today? Xavier Watts moves back from safety to wide receiver. He was wearing number 26. There were 2 number 26s in the blue jerseys, Xavier Watts and a walk-on. Xavier had a little white hoodie popping out of the back of his. Got a little video of him catching passes. It was just like the position drills and stuff like that. And there was once, because they were running it was 3 steps. They would take 3 steps off the line, make a cut and go 3 steps, and then, cut once again. Back in the youth football league, we called it down, out, and down. If it was toward the sideline, basically, that's kind of what this was. Really short. Xavier wasn't taking quite short enough, with his steps, still kind of getting used to running routes again.
It's gonna take a minute
as a receiver, but the receiver room got a little bit bigger with Xavier Watts moving over.
And Brian and I have pitched our tent in the same camp on this one. I think that he's going to be a better wide receiver than he is a safety. And I think he can be explosive. I think he can help this team. Somebody on the beat said that there's nobody. I texted Brian when I heard this, actually. He said there's nobody on the roster that they can move to wide receiver that will help them on Saturdays. And I cannot disagree more with that particular statement. That I think Xavier Watts can be an integral part of this rotation, if not a starter when it's all said and done, to be honest with you. You get him the ball in space, he's going to do some special things for you. I just think he gets a bad rap because he was defense, then offense, then back to defense.
Yeah.
And, the speculation is that he was moved away from offense because he wasn't good at offense. And so they moved him to defense. It's not really how it went down. And so, yes, they had to move him back to offense because of a body issue. It's not just for reps in practice. That's the thing. It's not just for reps in practice. This is because he is going to contribute to this team in a very real way. And I'm excited about it. I think that he's going to turn a lot of heads. I think he's going to have a lot lot of people eating their words when it's all said and done.
Yep. TBD, I guess. We shall see.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But, because of the numbers that they've got, when you've got 6 to 7 scholarship, available guys out there, that's can make a difference. Jaden Thomas was riding the stationary bike during warmups and, during practice today. So, one comes on and one goes off. And at the same time, Joe Wilkins, who has been on kind of that, I guess you'd call it the pup squad, whatever you want to call it, the physically unable to perform, like he'd been doing the conditioning on the side and riding the bikes himself. He was back out there today, had an early setback that he appeared to bounce back from, because I was watching him during warmups. He had a little bit of a gait to his step, and then he got out there, and in this same drill that I was talking, I don't know if it was the exact same drill, but one of the drills, he, planted to make a cut, and he kind of limped, and he was hobbling around a little bit. And then he kind of was like squatting down, stayed, not like kneeling down on the ground, but he was kind of in a squat down there, stayed down for several seconds while some other guys were doing their drills. And then finally he got back up and was going through the rest of the drills afterwards. So
that's a step in the right direction, though, that he's actually doing drills.
Yeah. I mean, it's good, but at the same time, you definitely don't want to push it back too soon. That Liz Frank, like Kevin Austin came back, re-broke his foot. Remember when he tried to come back? Bonzie Colson with the basketball team a few years back did the same thing, tried to come back, re-injured the foot. So got to be careful. But at least, like you said, he was back out there. So maybe hopefully it's just like a little tender and he's getting used to doing that stuff again since he hasn't been doing it.
Right, because he was doing a lot of straight line sprinting and no cutting. So I'm sure the cutting is the added, step to this whole thing. And yeah, it probably was a little, sore, tender.
Yeah. Thistlemore Pottery listened to another podcast, and I'm not going to get into finger pointing because, we're all friendly with,
absolutely
with everybody and stuff like that. But, he says, Another podcast on the beat had a complete opposite opinion about someone moving over, having an impact, literally exact opposite from what you guys at IB are saying. And, these are all, we're everything we see, for the most part, everything we see is subjective.
100%.
We have to base things, what we're seeing with our eyes, like if Gibran Payne or whoever takes one to the house and runs past everybody, well, that's not subjective. We know that, he ran past everybody and took it to the house. But when we're trying to project and predict who can potentially help, and, I think I think it's tough for one thing, when the guy has been playing defense and we haven't seen him out there catching passes until today, so again, it's all just basically subjective opinion. Like I said, TBD, we'll find out soon enough, but there is some skill there. The one thing that I noticed is like you could tell that Xavier Watts has been working out to play defensive back as opposed to wide receiver because he's like a little chestier than some of those other guys out there at the receiver position right now.
Oh, absolutely. He's going to be able to shed some tackles and some things like that. But you're right. He was making his body into a DB, and that's different from a wide receiver at the Division I level. And there's going to be a transition. Now, what he has on his side is that we're still 2 weeks plus away from him having to play in a game, right? So he has an opportunity to really work the fundamentals at wide receiver. And, oh, by the way, he also has a really, really good coach who stresses the fundamentals. So I think it's going to be a great transition. I just don't know how fast of a transition it's going to be. But I think at the end of the day, this is really going to benefit Notre Dame. And not just from a depth standpoint, but from an impact standpoint. I really do believe that. And look, those guys over there can have their opinion. That's totally fine. We've disagreed about stuff in the past. We've agreed about stuff in the past. Sometimes we're right. Sometimes they're whatever, man. Like, I totally respect those guys. And, we're allowed to have a difference of opinion, and that's the way we see it. And look, we're not going to tell you something we don't believe. We're not just going to hype them up just because, we're going to put on the rose-colored glasses and all that fun stuff.
Great. Yeah.
I loved Xavier Watts coming out of high school. And he was starting to get a little bit buried at the safety depth chart. I was hoping he was going to make a play for safety, but if I have a choice of having him on the bench on the defensive side or having him possibly have an impact on the offensive side, I want him over on offense. I want the ball in his hands. So, let's see what happens. I think he's got a great opportunity here. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'll say that.
Chris asked, could this be a scenario where Xavier has a good season, comes back next year and starts? That would add to the depth chart. I mean, I don't think he has to, good is the word you use. I mean, I think he just really needs to have an adequate season. And, like from where he stands, I would think he would want to come back unless he just decides he's done with football.
Sure.
And when you look at the numbers, like with Chancey Stuckey talking earlier this week, that ideally he would like to have at least 10 scholarship receivers on the roster. And he's got like 7 right now. Obviously, the numbers are low. You're going to lose a couple of guys. So I think that, this, and that could be part of what this is. This might not just be for this year, because when you look at the secondary recruiting going forward, they're obviously doing a lot better. They're pulling in more guys in the secondary, like highly rated guys in the secondary. So there's going to be more guys heading in that direction. Receiver is where they still need some depth. So I could easily, see this turning into a situation where Watts is back next year.
Oh, there's no question. And I mean, he's a sophomore in eligibility this year. He's a junior in school. So he's definitely going to be on the team next year. I was thinking
he was a year older anyway, but
yeah, he's definitely going to be on the team next year. And I think this is a permanent move. I think he's going to be on offense for the foreseeable future. I mean, the guys that were in front of him on the depth chart have similar eligibility left. So they're not, could he have started at safety next year? Yeah, he could have, but I think he's going to have great opportunity on the offensive side of things.
Yeah. Irish Chi-Town asked why he can't play both ways as a backup. I think because, again, where they are now with the numbers at receiver, they need him dedicating as much time as he can at that position to be ready to go. Because, again, nobody wants to see another injury, but there could always be more injuries, and you need all the depth that you can get there on that side, and you need a guy who is, getting himself ready to go. Like Deion Colsey not practicing again and I mentioned Jaden Thomas out today. Colsey not practicing with that PCL, and Wilkins, even though he is back, still hobbled a little bit. So I would think that that's it, because I think there's enough depth and numbers over there at safety that they'll be okay. They really need Watts to get up to speed and be ready to go as a receiver.
And it's very difficult to back up 2 positions on different sides of the ball. That's asking an awful lot. That is the classic case of jack of all trades, master of none. And that's what you're going to have. You're not going to have a guy who's completely locked into one position or the other. That's not where I want to be. I want my backup, if he's going to be a backup, to be locked into that position. And so if he's one snap away and all of a sudden he's in, I don't want him thinking about the offensive side of the ball if he's now in on, it's just way too difficult with the complexity of both playbooks on both sides of the ball. It's asking too much. And I wouldn't ask that of a kid like that. He's offense now. And this was his decision. He made the decision. You got to remember, he almost left Notre Dame and left the offensive side of the ball because of his position coach. Well, that position coach is no longer here.
Right.
So that's a huge difference. He preferred offense from the way I understood it. He preferred offense in the first place, but he has such a poor experience on the offensive side of the ball due to his position coach that he's like, I'm either out of here or I'm going to defense.
Yeah.
And now he's back, and it's a completely different situation.
It's going to be much better now.
Right.
I guarantee it.
Absolutely.
Yep. And then the other thing, Jarrett Patterson was not practicing today. He was not out there. And there were a few other reserve offensive linemen also not out there today. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. And again, we're going to get a full practice Friday. So we'll get we're going to get a much better idea Friday of where things stand in a lot of different ways. So we got our work cut out for us Friday when we
it's
see
going
the
to be
whole
fun.
thing.
I'm looking forward to Friday. We get the full practice, and we're going to, we're not going to get to see a scrimmage, which is a little disappointing. But at the same time, if I'm Marcus Freeman, I'm not showing a full scrimmage to the media either. And so, hey, maybe we'll get a full dose of special teams, and we'll be able to let everybody know how wonderful Blake Groupie is.
I've been saying that. All along. So what we're going to do today is we are going to try to predict where all the balls are going this year in terms of passes or in terms of receptions.
Yeah.
Who's going to be catching the ball? So Vince and I, we're going to take a stab. We're going to go from top to bottom, just like a stat sheet, basically. And we are going to try to predict the receptions and the receiving yards that each guy will have. So we're going to start at the top and work our way down. We'll see how far down we go.
Yeah.
But the way we're going to do it, we're going to take turns with this. So Vince will go first. So it'll be a little bit like, like a fantasy draft or something. Vince is going to get to go first with who he thinks is going to be the leading receiver. He's going to give receptions and receiving yards. And then after Vince gives his...
Oh, we're doing receiving yards too? Oh, no. Okay.
Did you not do receiving yards?
I did receptions, but that's okay. I can float it. We'll be all right. We'll be be good.
All right.
Do it on the fly.
So yeah, let me bring mine up because my show sheet kind of went blank here just a second ago. So I need to pull up my other computer site so I can see where we are. Yeah. So then after Vince makes his pick, I will have the opportunity to adjust up or down on the receptions, like 5 up or 5 down. So if I think you're too high, I can, but I have to do it in increments of 5. And then after I make my pick, Vince will be able to do the same thing to my pick. And so we're just gonna go back and forth like that, and we're gonna make our predictions.
Yeah, my yards are gonna be off the cuff, definitely.
That's fine.
I feel pretty good about my receptions at the moment, but we'll see. I'm curious to see where you go with some of these. I really am.
Okay. All right. So, I don't think. Well, I'll just let you go. I think I know who you're going to say. I'm curious to see what your number is, though.
This is like the NFL draft from 2020 when Joe Burrow was the top pick. Everybody knew it was going to be Joe Burrow, right? Well, everybody knows that the top reception guy is going to be Michael Mayer. And I would be silly if I didn't go with Michael Mayer on this one. Of course, I'm going with Michael Mayer. He had 71 receptions last year.
Right.
He had 800 and some odd yards, if I remember correctly. I think he'll do better. I have him at 80, and I think his yards will be better as well. So I have him at 1,000.
Oh, wow.
Yep, I'm going there. Yards. I think he's going to be a crazy security blanket for Tyler Buckner, number 1. Number 2, I just think they're not going to force it to him, but I just don't see how you guard him on 3rd down. I just don't see it. And so I think he's going to get a lot of play. I think he's going to get a lot of yards. What was he? 800 something last year. Let's see. I've got it right here. 840 last year. So, you're only asking for another 150 yards basically. And with 8 more receptions or 9 more receptions, I think he can do it. And he missed a game last year too. So
that's true. That is very true.
I'm going out on a limb. Yes. But he's an All-American. He's the best tight end in the country. 80 and 1,000. That's where I'm going.
80 and 1,000
Yep.
is Vince's pick. I had 82 for 910. So we're not too far off.
Okay.
So we're in the same ballpark. So I'm not going to adjust you at all. We're only 2 receptions off.
Okay.
We're in the same ballpark. He gets 1,000 yards with 80 catches, and he's up there, around probably 13 and a half, 14 yards a catch.
And he was about almost 12 last year at 11.8.
Yep. That's true. Okay. So Michael Mayer is number one. So
Yes.
Vince, with the first pick, goes Michael Mayer, 80 for 1,000. So I'm going to go with a wide receiver as the number 2 guy for Notre Dame this season. And we did, a couple of days ago, we made our picks in terms of who we thought were going to be the top 2 most productive wide receivers only wide receivers. So I think probably the guy most people would be picking, to be Notre Dame's top wide receiver for the season. I have Lorenzo Styles. And here's where I had a problem with the Lorenzo Styles. Just the fact that, okay, he's a first-time full-time starter, all that kind of stuff. We've seen the potential, all the highlights in the Fiesta Bowl and everything that he did. New quarterback, like we think Buckner can air it out. I really struggled with the number of catches because I think it could be anywhere from like 40 even up to like 60 or 65.
Yeah,
potentially.
Agreed.
But again, like, does the ball get distributed differently with all these different options and all these different personnel combinations that I think we're likely to see this season? So for Lorenzo Styles, I went 45 catches.
Okay.
For 810 yards.
Okay.
45 for 810. What do you think?
So I was a little bit more, positive, I guess, about Lorenzo Styles.
Okay. Like I said, I felt like there was a big window.
I was in your window. I'm within your window for sure, because you said all the way up to like 65. Yeah. I had him at 55. And so I will adjust your number to 50.
Okay.
Just to kind of split the difference between the two of us.
Sounds good.
And I had him at like 800 yards, and I think that's probably fairly accurate. And you had him at over 800 and 10 less receptions. So I had him at 855. So
see, and that's like, I think the yards per catch is going to be up there. I think where I had him would put him at around 18 yards per catch, which for a guy with his skill set,
absolutely doable.
Irish Chi-Town said 47 for 877, so we're all in the same ballpark.
There you go.
Right there for Lorenzo Styles. So I'll just go with the 810 that I have and bump him up to 50 catches.
Cool. Love it.
Okay. So that puts you up next.
This is tough for me.
Who's going to be the number 3 man?
This is tough for me, and this is complete speculation and complete I don't even know what the word I'm looking for, but I after seeing one practice, I'm hoping that Jaden Thomas can be who I think he can be, because there needs to be a yin to the yang of Lorenzo Styles. There needs to be another option. Somebody needs to step up. I'm hoping it can be him. And so I have him next on the list. I have him at 40 receptions.
Okay.
And I have him at 645 yards.
Okay, so you're saying 40 for 645. You've got him a lot more than what I have.
And I figured I would. Yeah. I'm speculating a little on this one. Hoping.
And I put him, because like Avery Davis had 27 catches for 386. Now, granted, he missed, a few games because of his knee injury and stuff like that. So he probably, would have been closer to 35 or in that range. So say your number again that you had for Thomas.
I had him at 40 receptions, receptions, and I think, what did I say, about 650 yards? Like I said, I'm doing the yards kind of on the fly here, but about 650 in that neighborhood.
Okay.
And if he does that, it's going to be great. I mean,
I'm gonna be the first to bump. I'm gonna bump you. No, I guess you just bumped me on Lorenzo Styles. You went the other way though.
Yes, you're
I'm gonna say Thomas. I'm gonna go down.
Okay.
On Thomas, I'm gonna say just a little bit down. Like closer again to like Avery Davis production last year. Now it could end up being higher, but so I'm gonna say Thomas has 35 catches.
Okay.
This year.
Okay.
And what's the yards again?
I had him at like 650-ish.
650. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Okay. So we're, I had him considerably less. I had him closer to 26, just because again, it's like,
I'm projecting. And like I said, I'm hoping that he can kind of be that number 2, like that in the wide receiver room. And I didn't want to completely over project Xavier Watts at this point, although I was very tempted to. And so Jaden Thomas had to be that guy for me.
Yep.
So
Alberto says 35 for 550. So,
Okay.
he's
It's
still
in
a
the
little bit.
neighborhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I like that 550 there
Okay.
as well. So, because like we were talking, if we add all this up by the end of the show, what's it going to add up to?
I know.
Is Tyler Buckner going to have, like a Joe Burrow type year when it's all said? Who knows? Maybe he will.
Well, and it's
But,
tough because it's tough because
yeah,
they
see,
are going to
this
be in
is
the. I know.
DT Rollhunter says Vince is going to have Notre Dame passing for 5,000 yards this year.
There's going to be a lot of RPO type stuff, short throws, things like that, where they might rack up some receptions, but not necessarily a lot of yards. And I think that is a possibility.
Yeah. Thistlemore Pottery, one of these unknowns are going to surprise us.
Absolutely.
That's true. That is very true. And it could be Jaden Thomas. And, like Chancey Stuckey is really high on this guy. Talking to Stuckey the other day, one of the things that he talked about was Thomas in the red zone. Like that is an area where he can really thrive because of his size. But he's got good speed too. So, I think that's kind of the deceptive part about him. He's really someone who I'm excited to
Me
see.
too. And I was very pleasantly surprised when we saw him the other day. You know what I mean? And that he was getting first team reps and he was making first team rep plays. You know what I mean? And it was disappointing then to see him the next day on the bike. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
exactly.
We'll see. Yep.
Okay, so we've got the top three guys so far. My pick, I'm going to go with the first running back.
There you go.
And I'm going to go with Chris Tyree. Like Kyron Williams in, his last couple of years, it was like 32 catches and 42 is what he had last year. So, he's averaging right around, 36, 37 catches, or he did average that many. And, again, like on display, we saw what Chris Tyree can do as a receiver in the Fiesta Bowl. So I'm pretty high on him and his receiving skills, especially like if these other three guys can stay healthy all year. I really like him as a receiver out of the slot. So I'm going to go 40 receptions for 450 yards for Chris Tyree.
Ooh, you are high on Chris Tyree. Look at you. I was just a shade. I mean, I was a 5 spot below you. So I had him at 35, which I did look at Kyron's numbers. I looked at some other, years back with running backs and things like that. And I didn't want to overproject. So I had him at 35. Which I think is very doable, and he may outperform that, to be honest with you. And I would be fine with that, obviously. But I had him at 35, and I had him at about 300 yards gain. So
I
didn't go crazy on the yards. And I think the 35 is a very reasonable amount. You know what I mean?
So let's go 35. I had 450, you had 300. Let's just say 375.
Yeah, I like that. I like
35 and 375. Okay.
We got to keep track of these, by the way. We're gonna have to
I was going to say Chris is keeping score. I'm writing down what we have. Chris is keeping score. 3 pass catchers already 2,400 yards. And now we've got it up to almost 2,800 when we throw in Chris Tyree. We've got 4.
Hey, Drew Pine's going to get some time in there too. So mop up duty.
That's true. That's true. So okay, so who's our number 5 receiver then, Vince?
So next on my list is actually I have Tobias Merriweather is next on my list, and I had him at 25 receptions, which I had a tough time with him because I think he could end up being a guy that they count on, the latter half of the season. I don't think they're going to throw him in the fire right away.
Yeah,
maybe they do, but I just don't think that they will. So I think they're going to kind of ease into Tobias. And could he have more than 25 receptions? Absolutely. But I just feel like he's not going to get a full 12 games to do it. And so I put him at 25, and I've got the yardage for him at 400.
Okay.
And I that might be a lot. I realize we're just racking up yardage here. But
yeah. See, I think that might be tough. A bit high.
And that's fine. That's totally fine. I think there will be some games where he goes off, though, whether it's a Marshall game or a Cal or UNLV, something along those lines, where he may play a whole second half. And good luck to those teams on stopping 15.
Right. My only hesitation on Tobias, because the talent is there, and Chancey Stuckey was praising his talent the other day. The thing that he was talking about is what you always hear about with the freshmen, the details. And I think we were
Sure.
talking, you and I were talking about that the other day. So that's why I was definitely much lower. I had
I get that.
14 for 240. So what was your number again?
25.
25. Let's just say 20.
Okay.
For 300. Is that still too high? Maybe.
No, I had him for more than that. So yeah, 300's fine.
Okay. All right. Again, like I'm watching your yard totals. just
I told you, I'm super optimistic. Apparently on the offensive
we're
side.
gonna have these guys. So now we're 5 receivers in, and we're approaching 3,000 yards.
That's right.
I think so.
Killing it.
Yeah, I know.
Killing it.
All right. So who do I have next? I've got another. You know who I completely left out? Well, not left out. Who has been left out to this point is Braden Lindsay, and what's going to happen with Braden Lindsay this year? And like I've talked about, I think that he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit. And again, the benefit of having Chancey Stuckey as opposed to who he had in the past, I think he's going to benefit from that. We can see him in on some deep shots. Now, I have him for 30 catches for 400 yards. That might be, I just don't know, like again on the yards. What do you think about the 30 receptions, though?
I had him a little bit lower, actually. I had him at 25, and I brought him down a little bit because my numbers were so high. And I had to take away from some people as we went along. And so I had him at 25. It's the yards that I have a really hard time with him, because I think a lot of his yards are going to come on big plays. I do think that in the pass game. Now, they're also going to use him, in the end arounds and the jet sweeps and things like that. And he was actually talking about that in his interview about why he's good at that kind of stuff and what that means and all of that. And so I just this one's really hard for me. Let's put it at like 350. 350.
Okay. So what's our catches are going to be?
So I had it 25 for 350.
25 for 350. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit. We're going to tamp the brakes a little bit more on Braden Lindsay and bring it down. And I did see somebody asking earlier, are there any other tight ends or running backs who are going to be in this conversation?
Oh, I've got them on the list.
I would have actually had a running back, in that Lindsay spot, but then I realized that, I passed up Lindsay and I had to go back to it. It's kind of like forgetting to draft somebody.
I know, right?
And it's like, oh, he's still there. Of course
right.
I'm going to take him. So Braden Lindsay drops in there. So now we have 6 guys. Who's going to be number 7 on the receiving list, Vince?
So this is where I'm projecting, but it is, and it's, I don't want to say it's spiteful, but like, I think people are going to sleep on Xavier Watts. He's my next guy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right. I think I had him for 22 catches and like 275-ish, 250, 275.
I realize, you said off the top that you didn't write down yardage. Your yardage numbers, man,
are they a little out of control?
We're going to get to like Madden numbers here pretty soon.
You're probably right. And that's the problem. And obviously somebody's going to get hurt. Somebody's going to get hurt.
That's true.
There's going to be, blowouts and all of these different things. And it's like, I'm looking at last year's stats. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that are over 24 receptions and 250 yards.
Yeah.
That's a lot of yards, but then it falls off a cliff after that when it comes to it goes from 24 to 6. You know what I mean? So it's like you're going to have a bunch of single digit situations, possibly this year, So
Irish Chi-Town has Xavier. He said 5 and 70, and that is almost exactly what I picked. I said 6 and 70. I'm a lot.
Yeah, you are
a lot more bearish on Xavier just because
I think he'll have that in 2 games.
Haven't seen him yet. I don't know.
I don't
know. So I'm going to bump you down to 17.
Okay, that's fine.
And let's just say 150 yards.
All right. He's going to bust one, and you're all going to be like, D'Addario was right.
Somebody's yards have to come down, though.
You're right. They do have to come down. The yardage thing threw me. So I'm throwing numbers out at you, making your head spin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm going to come to Gibran Payne next.
Oh.
And this is a guy who, we saw him a little bit on kick return today. We've seen him back there doing some kick return from time to time. I had Chris Tyree up there, earlier. And so this would be the second running back on the list.
Wow.
And I think Gibran Payne is going to catch around 20 balls this season. And I've got him for 240 yards. So what do you think about that? Where did you have Payne?
I have him for 3 catches.
Wow, no kidding.
For like 42 yards.
I just think
I don't think he's going to play that much. I really don't.
I do. Just based on the numbers at the position, like Logan Diggs isn't even fully healthy right now, and because of his receiving skills, I think that's what can get him on the field more.
Okay.
Like I think specifically his receiving skills are going to get Gibran Payne some playing time this year.
It's possible. No,
yeah.
I mean,
so you can knock me down.
No, so where did you have him at? You had him at like 15?
I had him 20. I had him actually pretty healthy.
Wow.
So
yeah, I'll definitely knock him down to 15.
Okay.
Because
15. Irish Chi-Town has him 14 and 87. Yeah. I'll take 15 for 95.
Okay. That's fine. I will be. I mean, he's the fourth back, right? I mean, he's the fourth back.
He is, but again,
it's not often that 4 backs get into a game.
He's a guy. No, but again, we still don't know exactly what's going to happen with Logan Diggs getting through the season.
Sure.
I just, and again, because of where the receiver room is, like if your Xavier Watts prediction is right, then that does probably knock Payne's numbers down. But because of the receiver room, and you're going to need these running backs to contribute, and like I asked, Dylan McCullough today, are you working on more pass stuff with these guys because of what's going on at the receiver room? And he said, yeah. And, so I think specifically that's what's going to get Payne on the field, both potentially as a return guy, and then offense specifically his receiving skills, I think are what get him on the field, obviously probably more in the slot.
Okay. Fair enough.
So who do you have next then?
Next, I have, let's see here. Who have we? Joe Wilkins is my next guy on the list. Okay. Good old Joe Wilkins. I'm hoping that he's healthy. But even if he is, I see him at like the 13 to 15 in that neighborhood, right? And I don't see him having more than like 150, 175 yards.
So say that again. I'm sorry. I was looking at some other stuff.
No, it's okay. I've got Joe Wilkins in the 13 to 15 area.
Okay.
And like 150, 175 yards.
Okay.
The injury scares me. And you're right. I had to start taking receptions and yards away from some people. And Joe Wilkins was a prime candidate. And so were some other people, but he's next on my list.
All right. Let's go 10 for 120 then for Joe Wilkins, which I'm still not.
Yeah, you're not sold on him either. And
it's mostly because of the injury.
Sure.
He's had some inconsistencies, and this injury is not helping anything right now. That's what, just watching him today, granted it's early and he's just getting back and stuff like that. But the fact that he's limping around and then he hurt himself, again, he tweaked it trying to cut, and we're talking about a broken bone in his foot. That's what scares me.
Absolutely. Could not agree more.
Yeah. I'm going to go Eli Raridan next. I think we've got to get another tight end in there, and again, like there's a big range that I can see here. I can see Raridan, as a like another red zone type guy, with that size that he's got down there. So I'm going to go 12 catches, or what I have is 12 catches for Eli Raridan for 160 yards.
I will go with that because I had him at 10 for like 150. So we're in the same neighborhood, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. Yep.
All right. Who's up next?
Next up for me.
Let's go. We'll each do one more, and then we'll call it we'll call it after that because
Okay.
we're getting pretty, there's not a whole lot more to go at this point. Anyway.
Yeah, this one hurt me a little, but I know he's going to be in there and he's going to get some catches, whether it's on a look screen or something along those lines. So I have Matt Salerno in. I have him for 10, and I have him for like 87 yards. Like, I don't think he's not going to be busting off anything long. He'll get a look screen for like 5 or 7, that kind of a thing. And could he average like 0.8 catches a game? Yeah, I think he could. So that I have him for 10.
I've got him 8 for 70, so not too far off.
Yeah, we're in the same neighborhood
just a little bit less. So I've got one more. I'm going to go with another tight end. It is going to be Kevin Bellman. And, Bellman is a guy, again, who like in training camp last year, we saw him be a red zone machine, catching a lot of balls down in the red zone and helping out there because of Raritan and just the skill set that he has.
Sure.
I don't know what it looks like for Kevin Bellman. I do think he's going to be on the field quite a bit, though, this year. Again, with so many personnel groupings and stuff like that. I've got him 10 for 110.
Oh, okay. You know what? I had him for like 8 for like 100. I think that he's going to be overlooked in the receiving category by Eli Raritan. I think that's going to get kind of taken away from him. But I will also say, I think Kevin Bellman gets more plays. I think he's on the field more often in the 2 tight end sets. But when it comes to throwing the ball, I think he's going to be behind the freshman. So I think I'm in the same neighborhood as you, and that's totally fine.
Okay. All right. So that is what it looks like for our receptions predictions for the upcoming season. I don't know. I'm afraid to tally that up. And I'm sure that somebody's got the the actual tally.
It's going to be a big number.
There.
It might be embarrassing when the season's all said and done, but it is what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm just going to be, all I'm going to remember from this whole thing is I'm going to remember Xavier Watts, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on his stats as the season goes along.
Yep.
I'm not a big I told you so guy, but I feel like this is the one. This is the guy I'm going to ride the whole season so I can tell people I told you so.
All right. All right.
That's all I got out of this whole thing that we just did. That's what I took out of it.
That's Vince's takeaway.
That's my takeaway.
He's just waiting to say, I told you so, for all the Xavier Watts doubters.
That's right.
All right.
That's right.
All right. Well, with that, are you ready for some rapid fire?
I am ready for some rapid fire.
I thought you might be. Manti Te'o documentary is up on Netflix. It is called Untold, the girlfriend who didn't exist. Have you seen it yet, Vince?
I have not seen it, but it is 100% on my things to do list once, things kind of start to die down at the beginning of school and everything. But I am really looking forward to watching it. I've seen some comments on Twitter. Robbie Toma, obviously one of Manti's really good friends.
He was in it.
He basically said he wants to like beat up all the nerds that they interviewed or something like that, which I thought was pretty funny. And so I'm very interested to see what they say, because I remember being right in the middle of that whole thing.
Oh man,
feeling like people were just blowing it so far out of proportion. So I'm interested to see what it looks like as we look back.
It is very favorable toward Manti. I watched both episodes last night. I was originally just going to watch the first, and each episode is about an hour long.
Okay.
In the first, it just kind of gets you through it. It sets up, rehashes everything from Manti, connecting with the person he thought was Lene Kekua on Facebook right up until early December 2012, right before the Heisman Trophy ceremony.
Okay.
And there were some familiar media faces in there, like Dean Huppert, who, of course, is now the athletic director at Mishawaka High School. There was a quick shot of him from a newscast. Jeff Jeffers, the late great, and Angelo DiCarlo. They showed them in a sideline shot, and of course, Jack Swarbrick, all the all those people. But I think the most important thing to me, they had Jack Swarbrick kind of giving background and what was going on from Notre Dame standpoint, when they knew, and what they were trying to find out after they knew. Because they did know before the national championship game. Manti went to him and said, that his dead girlfriend could be alive. And at that point, it's like, what? And so So there's that. And then there is also this Renaya Tuiasosopo, which is the person who perpetrated this whole hoax. And he looks a lot different now. He was a high school quarterback, and he has transitioned into a she now at this point. And, so she is on camera giving her side. Manti is on camera giving his side.
Wow.
And then, part 2 is, and basically Renaya cops to everything, and takes full accountability for everything. Now,
Good.
was there a lot of remorse? I don't know, but I'll just, I'll just leave it at this. Bobby and I are, we're both going to do a full review, so I don't want to go like too in depth on today's show. We're going to go full review on tomorrow's show. I just kind of wanted to tease. It's
almost a throwback to the previous podcast, buddy. The two guys talking sports movies. That's what this is going to be tomorrow.
That's true.
I'm excited.
You guys talking a sports documentary.
Yeah,
is what it is.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm kind of fired up for that now because I was a loyal listener to your podcast at the time. So
you're the one.
Loyal. I'm the one. That's right.
Yeah, right. But we'll do that on tomorrow's show. So Bobby and I on tomorrow's show, we're going to go full in depth on this.
Oh, I can't wait. You've wetted my whistle. I'm ready.
So, yep. So we're going to get into that. Okay. Which number will be greater this season? Isaiah Foskey's sacks or Michael Mayer's touchdown catches?
Again, I think that the possibility of Isaiah Foskey just going bonkers in sacks it's definitely there. Now, I do think he's going to get a ton of attention from any offensive line, that he faces. He had 11 last year, right?
Yep.
And I remember there was something about Michael Mayer hitting 10. He didn't hit 10 last year in touchdown receptions.
He got 7.
There was a bet going around. He didn't even come close to 10.
Yeah.
I'm going to go. So Foskey beat him by 4 last year, right?
Yes.
Even though I think all the attention is going to be on both of these guys,
yes.
I'm still going to take Michael Mayer.
That's the direction I'm leaning as well, because it's like none of these things are ever linear, especially like when it comes to sacks, because all the guys, it's like, well, like Jerry Tillery, had this season, and then you expect, these big numbers the next, and, Dalen Hayes and Aquara and all these guys, like you kept expecting this big jump based on the production that we saw. I do think what's going to help Isaiah Foskey is what's around him, between the Adamalolas and Riley Mills and, other guys commanding attention, Jordan Botello in some situations, potentially if he's on the field. So I do think that'll help. And, the other side of this is, we talked about some of the red zone options that Notre Dame is going to have this year between Raritan, Bellman, some of these other guys, Jaden Thomas, I think, because of his size. So that could potentially take away some touchdowns from Michael Mayer, but I still think Mayer's number is going to be greater as well. So
it's going to be close. It's going to be close. I just feel like there's only so much coverage you can do with Michael Mayer in the red zone when you also have to pay attention to number 12 and his legs and all of that. There's so many different things you have to keep an eye on for Notre Dame.
That's a big X factor. That's a big X factor is what Buckner is going to give him in the red zone. Like, is he going to take away from some of these receiving numbers for some of these other guys, because he's just going to get it in there himself, and that'll be a question that we have on Tyler Buckner here.
No doubt,
not too distant future.
No doubt,
what those numbers are going to look like. Okay, fill in the blank on this next one. Everyone's going to love this. Paul Feinbaum saying Notre Dame being in the preseason top 10 national rankings is, quote, an absolute joke. It happens every year with the AP poll, which is just as worthless as the preseason NFL football. That is blank. Vince.
Typical Paul Feinbaum is what that is, because he loves the SEC and anything out of the SEC doesn't matter, obviously. He's also very smart because he knows that whatever he says negative about Notre Dame is going to get a ton of clicks and it's going to get a ton of attention. And he's right. He's right. It does. And he can't even, I'm sorry. He can't even say this with a straight face. Okay. Notre Dame is number 5, I believe, in the AP poll preseason, right? Where did they finish last year in the final AP poll, Sean?
Last year in the final poll, they finished 8th.
Top 10, right?
They started 9th and finished 8th.
Okay. So I don't understand what the issue, they've been pretty darn good the last 5 years. They have belonged in the top 10 the last 5 years. And I don't think anybody can logically dispute that. We're not talking about Notre Dame being in the top 2 or the top 3 or even the top 4. Talking about, he said top 10 is an absolute joke. I'm sorry. You cannot show me 10 teams that are better than Notre Dame, that have a better roster than Notre Dame has going into the season. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous.
These polls, you've got like those 3 Big 12 teams sitting there stacked up, they're from like 9, 10, 11 or something like that. And I would put Notre Dame in front of any of them right now. And that's the problem that I have with Feinbaum making this statement is it's just, it's just absolute fiction, because of like what you're talking about, because when you look at the track record, 4 of the last 5 years, Notre Dame has started out, or they have finished with a higher ranking than what they went into the preseason with. Now, this is their highest preseason ranking in a while. But again, like last year, they started 9th, finished 8th. In 2020, they started 10th, finished 5th. In 2018, they started 12th, finished 5th. In 2017, unranked, they finished 11th. The only outlier in that group is 2019, and they weren't that bad. They started 9th, so they were in the top 10. They finished 12th. They still only had 2 losses that year.
There you go.
It's like, it's just like he's shooting from the hip. He's playing to his base. That, and just, like you said, he knows it's going to go viral if he shoots his mouth off about Notre Dame, because again, it's like, you expect someone like him who's been, who's followed college football as long as he has, to put a little bit more fact into his analysis, but that's not what he's doing. He just decides he's going to shoot his mouth off. Notre Dame is a convenient target.
Well, and look, the bottom line is I personally had Notre Dame at 5. Okay. The 4 teams ahead of them deserve to be ahead of them. And I have no problem with that. But the teams that are behind them deserve to be behind them. You're telling me that Notre Dame's roster is worse than Texas A&M's roster, like as far as what they've accomplished already and what they're projected to accomplish. All of these other teams in the bottom half of the top 10, Notre Dame's better than them. They just are. Now, that's why you play the games, obviously. And so we're going to see what happens with Notre Dame. But it's lazy. It's lazy on his part because he is a bright dude. He understands football. He knows football. And then he just sounds like an idiot. And it takes away all of his credibility, in my opinion.
That's right. Because there's a little cowherd there because he knows it doesn't have to be factual. He just has to come up with some whatever opinion, again, shoot from the hip and it's going to go viral and it's going to get him attention. And, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, the attention and the ratings and, all that stuff. That's what matters.
Absolutely.
So,
okay. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. Kirk Herbstreit says the Rose Bowl should be the permanent home of college football's national championship game, saying Pasadena is the mecca of college football. Do you buy or sell it, Vince?
Well, he's obviously a Big Ten guy. Big Ten has a tie-in to the Rose Bowl. So, I mean, there is a bit of that. So he reveres the Rose Bowl as a destination spot.
Right.
And okay.
Like a lot of Midwest,
and
Big Ten people.
Yeah. And so there's some legitimacy to that. And I will also say that even though the bowl games themselves, like the vast majority of the bowl games have lost some of their luster because of the way they're doing things these days, the Rose Bowl is still the Rose Bowl, and it's still a destination. And if you're asking me if there was a mecca for college football, I would have to agree with them that it's got to be the Rose Bowl. There's not a whole up, and you probably will correct me. I'm probably wrong, but when I think of college football and not just individual stadiums as far as like, the Horseshoe with Ohio State and blah, blah, blah. But the Rose Bowl is college football. It's not just UCLA because they play their games there. It's college football. And so if they were going to pick one place and it wasn't going to go anywhere else, it would be the Rose Bowl for me.
See, I would agree with that if that's what they were going to do. If they
Right.
decided they needed to pick one place, and you
Right.
talk about the mecca of college football, I actually agree with that, because, like, I will say, like before, I know a lot of people, sort of like, I think that there is much more importance with the Rose Bowl today than there was 30, 40 years ago, because it used to be just the Big Ten champ and the Pac-10
Sure.
champ. And when it was that, you had a lot of fairly irrelevant, meaningless games on New Year's Day. It was the backdrop and everything else. At least now, like when Texas beat USC to win the national championship, that's as meaningful as the Rose Bowl had been in a long, long time.
Sure.
And we've seen more playoff games there and national championship games there, and and those kind of things as well. So, I do agree that like when you compare it to, okay, the Sugar Bowl is a dingy old dome in New Orleans.
Yeah.
The Orange Bowl is in, the Hard Rock Stadium.
Yeah, which doesn't have any history to it at all.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Like, at least the old Orange Bowl, like,
Right.
it rocked and it shook, and
Right.
it's like, it's going to collapse.
Right.
But like the Cotton Bowl isn't even played in the Cotton Bowl anymore.
Right.
It's played in the Jerry Dome. So
Right.
yeah, like in terms of like classic settings and all you get with it, the sunset, which is a big part of this whole thing. Yeah, the Rose Bowl is great. I definitely put it up there in terms of just like you said, college football mecca.
Yeah.
But I don't think the national championship game should be played in the same place.
I agree with that too.
Every year.
Yes.
I think that it, just like the Super Bowl, it needs to move around, give different communities
Right.
Opportunities to host these games. I don't think that that one city, one site deserves to have that big a game every year. I think it needs to move around.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I think it would get stale if it was in the same place every year, even if it was the Rose Bowl. So yeah, I agree that it needs to move around. But if they were to pick one, that would be my pick.
Yep. Sid Irish says, LA is trash can. It was a dump when I lived there. It's third world now. Are you describing the LA Coliseum? Because that's what the Coliseum was the last time I was there. Like, I haven't been to the Rose Bowl. I'd like to. That's kind of like definitely a bucket list type place for me. I've been to the Coliseum enough times to know that I've seen enough.
Yeah.
And
no, I get that. Yeah.
No amenities there. There's nothing.
Where you and I would be living would probably be a dump if we were in LA. Okay. Yeah. We're not going to be living in the hills or, where things are beautiful and nice. So I have no desire to be in LA, to be perfectly honest with you.
True statement.
I couldn't afford it.
Yep. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Kent State will play non-conference games against Washington, Georgia, and Oklahoma in the month of September this season.
Good for their bank account. That's what it is. It's good for their bank account because they're making a ton of money.
$5.2 million in payouts from those 3 games.
That's a pretty sustainable amount of money for the Kent State athletic department. $5.2 million will go a long way in a MAC school, and I give them a lot of credit. They're going to get to play in all over the country in some pretty cool places, to be honest with you. Talking about Washington, Georgia, Oklahoma, those are some pretty cool stadiums to go to, right?
Yeah.
They're
going to get smoked, but sure.
Yeah, they are going to get smoked, but you know what? They also still have a great opportunity to win their conference if they're any good, right? And so those 3 losses aren't going to mean anything. It's going to be $5.2 million, and they can still go win a conference championship. So I have no problem with that because that's the way college football is set up right now. And they're going to have really cool road trips. Yes, they're going to get smoked. I remember, Sean, when our buddy Shaq Van went up to Eastern Michigan, right? And one of the things that he got to do was go down and play at LSU. And he scored a touchdown down there. Yeah, they got smoked, but he scored a touchdown at LSU.
He scored a touchdown at LSU.
Yeah. That's something he's going to remember the rest of his life. I still have the video from the clip of him scoring a touchdown at LSU. I saw it the other day. That's cool. That's awesome. Guys in the MAC don't get that kind of an opportunity. Go cash your checks, man. I have no problem with it.
again, the checks are going to be big. Like this is the kind of like one a year. Like, like most schools of this size, It's like, okay, we'll play Washington this year. Next year we'll go to Georgia. Next year we'll go to Oklahoma.
Right.
They're doing this,
Right.
those 3 games at Washington, at Georgia, at Oklahoma in a 4-week span. They play like Loyola, somebody, I think, like LIU or something like that in between,
Get that dub, baby.
I don't know how they're going to survive that stretch and then be competitive in their conference. I would just think they're going to get so beaten up. That's what I would be worried about if that was me. But, again, $5.2 million, that's got to cover a pretty good chunk of your athletic budget.
Well, and they're probably still trying to make up for those COVID years too, with all that lost revenue and everything. And so they're like, well, here's one way to do it. Let's pack up the schedule with check games, right? So, yeah.
I mean, like you were a high school baseball coach. You did all your own scheduling. I don't think that you ever went out of your way to say, how many state champions can I find that I can schedule early in the season before I get into my conference? Because that's going to challenge me for conference play.
So here's what I will say, though. We went down to Bloomington. We took a spring break trip down to Bloomington. We played the defending state champion.
Right, I remember
we got our absolute doors blown off, but it was an awesome experience. So I think that's part of it. You know what I mean? And then when we came back up here, we didn't play anybody of that caliber. And so we were ready for whatever the NIC had to throw at us. That's for sure. So there is something to be said for that. 3 in a row is really tough, obviously. But again, they're going to have some road trips they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. So,
That's true. That's true. I hope they're taking pictures. I hope someone's saving the video. I hope they score. I hope someone scores enough meaningless touchdowns that it's memorable for them in 20 years.
Yes, absolutely.
I kicked a field goal in Georgia.
Hey, if my kid went there, right? Let's say he's the kicker at Kent State. I would go to all 3 of those games. You know what I mean? And it'd be great. I would love that road trip. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So,
yep, that's true. That's true. Yeah. It's a memory for somebody, as long as they can remember
it. Yeah, right.
Okay, so yesterday, Jesse and I talked about what our favorite NFL kickoff time is. What kickoff time we prefer. So my question today is, what college kickoff time would you pick if Notre Dame had to start at the same time every week? Would you pick noon, 1:30, 3:30, or would you pick the primetime slot?
Well, I can tell you right now, the primetime spot is 4th. Like that is dead last. It's not even close. Okay. That is so far away from what I would want. Because I'm still covering the team. If I wasn't covering the team, I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with, the late night game because I'd be able to watch every other game leading up to it. Okay. But since I cover it and I do a post-game show, primetime is 4th place. To be honest with you, the one so Notre Dame right now, when they're at home, they have 2:30 and they have 3:30 kickoffs. Those are the 2 that they have. I kind of dig the 2:30, Sean. I like the little bit earlier because we get out a little bit earlier. You're not up super late. We will have our pregame show in. Plenty of time still to get to the stadium.
True.
Kind of like a 2:30. I know it wasn't one of the options, but I kind of dig the 2:30 time slot.
I mean, I could take 2:30 over 1:30 because 1:30 has basically become obsolete. I guess you see more. Yeah. We used to have a lot of 1:30s back in the day. I think that was before we started changing our before we started observing daylight saving. I don't know if you remember.
I do. Oh, yes.
Yeah. The noon I don't like as much because of the early start, but you do get, the much earlier finish. I think I agree with you. 2:30 might actually be optimal. Like I'm changing my own thing as well. I don't get what the infatuation so many have with primetime. Is it just because you sit around and drink all day and you've got nothing else to do? And now it's like, hey, primetime game, I'm lubed up. Let's go. I don't get it. Like, I don't get the infatuation with needing to stay up until 11 or 11:30 to watch your team. And yeah, like people say, well, yeah, you media guys, you're right. You media guys, because again, it's like none of us are completely bitching and moaning about this, but the bottom line is when you're covering a game, it's not like a fan where, again, you can get lubed up and do whatever the hell that you want to do and then just move on to, or shut the game off at 9:30 if the game turns into a blowout. We have to sit there and watch the whole thing. And then when the game ends is when the actual work starts. And then, we're there until 1:30 or 2 in the morning. So we don't like primetime games for that reason. I'm sorry. So I would take, I do like the 2:30 even better, 2:30 or 3:30, because then, you're done by, you're done with the actual game by 6. And then even after you get done with your work, like you can still go, like you can come home if it's a home game, chill out, watch whatever the night game is, relax a little bit, or even watch a movie, whatever it happens to be, pop a cold one. If you're on the road, you go back to the motel, or, go out to, find some place to eat or whatever, and do the same thing, even though most of the road games are either noon or prime time.
Exactly. And and Notre Dame's been good, right? And so a lot of the times when they're on the road, it's a night game, and it stinks, to be honest with you. And frankly, when I was a student and I was tailgating, night games were the worst. I'm done tailgating at that point, man. Like you want to go home and take a nap before you got. Maybe I'm just not, a good enough
even
tailgater.
As a student.
But man, like that's just because we would get out there at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So you're talking 12 hours of tailgating? Nope. Doesn't work for me, man. Sorry.
I agree. Salty, our old friend Salty, says, I like prime time because the whole day builds up to it. It's a big matchup. Playing under the lights is nice. If it's a loss, you can just go straight to bed. See, and I addressed the loss part of it last night because as a fan, if I'm watching my team, I'm upset after a loss.
Yes.
And it
can't go to sleep.
It takes me a while to wind down.
Yep.
It's not the actual time itself and the late night and all that stuff. It's the winding down as a fan afterwards that, I can't, you're right. I can't fall asleep if it's, and then even if it's a good win, it's like sometimes your adrenaline is still pumping.
Even more so after a good win. Yeah, no doubt about it. And I've never been able to shut off a game and then just go straight to sleep. So, and here, Brandon actually asked, what time would you guys pick if you weren't media members?
I would probably just pick the 3:30 time, right in the middle of the day.
Yep.
Or even, I might, if I wasn't media, I might even just say noon, get it over with. And then you've got the rest of the day afterwards to do your thing.
I will say that I would pick the 3:30 as well, because I have gotten enjoyment out of the Big Ten noon games. I do enjoy whatever the big, the big noon game
like
is.
That game before.
I've enjoyed that
if you can watch it. Yeah.
And then it would roll right into the Notre Dame game. And so I would be cool with that. And then after that, then it rolls right into what's most likely a very good matchup at night of somebody. And so that's 3 games in a row that I could watch and be very happy about. So I would pick the 3:30 slot if I had to choose, if I was not a media member.
Yeah. I kind of like that as well. And, and that's kind of what I end up, like what you were just describing right there. Like if it is a primetime game and, like with these big noon matchups and all that stuff on Fox the last few years, I'll just kind of, it's like, well, okay, done with, not doing anything right now. So I'll watch that game for a little bit and then, see what's interesting. And, again, like the thing with college football is you're at least a half an hour longer than an NFL game, so they're going to run longer. It's a bigger time commitment. So that's, again, like to me, the earlier the better.
Absolutely.
Except I still, again, I won't say the earlier the better. That mid-afternoon is the best.
And that's where I would want it to. Yep, absolutely. No question.
Like I think I've said before, like back in the college days when you had bowl games on New Year's Day from wire to wire, I loved rolling out of bed on New Year's Day hungover and, getting, some nachos for breakfast and then waiting a little bit and, then popping a few more cold ones in the afternoon, a little hair of the dog, in the middle of the day, watching bowl game after bowl game. Ed says, good show, guys. He has a super chat. Good show, guys. Got to go get dinner. All right. Well, you can go get dinner because you're not watching a game right now. So have fun.
But thanks.
Have fun, Ed.
Thank you for the super chat. That's awesome.
That's right. Appreciate it. Much appreciated. All right. Well, good stuff tonight. We made our predictions for receptions earlier in the show. And, again, it might have Tyler Buckner throwing for like 6,000 yards, but we shall see.
Yes, we
I
shall.
suppose. And don't forget, Bobby and I are going to review that Manti Te'o doc on tomorrow's show. So we're going to be doing that. If you have or haven't seen, if you have seen it, obviously stop by in the live YouTube and you can kind of contribute some of your thoughts on things. And if you haven't, come on by. We will spoil it, but most people know what happened. But we'll give you an idea of what this thing is all about. And again, I felt it was very complimentary. Not complimentary, but it was very pro Manti. It set him up in a good light, which I think when you look at the entirety of everything that happened, he should have been, because there was even a lot more aftermath for him than I even thought.
It just wasn't right, man. He got railroaded. The dude is a
Total
compassionate guy who he fell into it. I mean, I don't know. I always felt bad for him, and not because I'm a Notre Dame fan, because I'm human. And people gave him such a hard time for that. It's not like he did it on purpose. That's the thing. It's not like he got snowed. He got tricked. He got fooled.
But there's still people who think,
my
he was in on it.
So. Oh my gosh. That's such ridiculousness. Anyway.
All right. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Thanks again for stopping by tonight. Like, rate, subscribe, review, all that good stuff. We definitely appreciate it. And we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.